In Las Vegas and back at the Wynn for vlog 165. It is so good to be back. My first trip here since October, and I just love this particular poker room and the other ones that I'm going to visit on this trip. Things obviously have been going very well for me lately at the Peppermill. Let's hope we can carry them over to Southern Nevada. The day would begin by me making the walk across the street, given the fact that I'm staying at Resorts World, to Encore. But before I played any poker on the trip, I grabbed some avocado toast and kale scramble at Jardin with fellow vlogger Jeff Boski, who gave us some good news.
New strip club video coming soon.
You can act like you won't watch that, but I'm just not sure that I believe you. By the way, Jeff seems to be the only friend I have that also watches Better Call Saul, so it was very good to be able to discuss the latest bombshell with him. I get to the poker room at about 2:30 and get on an already lengthy 2-5 list. I get into a game and start rolling on my new iPhone 13 mini because we've long realized that the video quality on this vlog needed to be improved, and I spent the money to make it happen. I didn't waste any time getting dealt the best hand for the first hour of play. Figured I'd let others do it. I'm a nice guy. Also, my journey to becoming an OMC is going to go a lot faster at the Wynn because damn, that coffee is good. I couldn't get dealt any hands early, but that didn't mean that I couldn't put chips into the pot. We get 3 limps and I have Jack 10 offsuit in the small blind and complete. With 25 in, it comes King 8-9 with 2 clubs, giving me a double belly buster. Check to the hijack who bets 20. I decide to go for the check raise semi-bluff here, making it 90. Folds back to him and he takes a good deal of time before calling. So with 205 in, the turn is an offsuit 6. I fire at 100 here, fairly confident that he'd call, but my plan was to be able to put a lot of pressure on him on the river if it came a brick. Because if he has a big king, he likely would have raised pre-flop and all the draws would then miss, and he wouldn't have anything to think about anyway. So he calls the 100 as expected. And with 405 in, the river is that blank. It comes the deuce of diamonds. So I go ahead and stick with my plan here of firing out fairly big. I make it 220, and he lays the hand down immediately. So we get a triple barrel bluff through right out of the gate. If you want a weird hand on this vlog, I have one for you. We get a limp from a woman in middle position, and an overlimp from the hijack. And then, what I'd presume to be the game's tightest player makes it 25 in the cutoff. I have pocket queen in the small blind. I obviously have to 3-bet, but I didn't think I could go too high because this isn't the type of player who's going to want to play big pots with hands like 8s or 9s in a spot like this, so my sizing would reflect that. So I make it 80 with that in mind. But shockingly, before it even gets back to the guy that I'm actually worried about here, both limpers cold call that bet. Needless to say, the other guy comes along too, and with 325 in, the flop is King, Jack 4, 2 clubs. I'm first to act here and elect to just check this. To my astonishment, nobody bets, and the turn is an offsuit 6. I decide to bet very small here as a value bet. I make it 65 as I still wasn't feeling all that great with that king on the board despite nobody betting the flop. And ultimately, only the hijack would call this bet. And with 455 in, the river is an offsuit jack. I didn't love that because I was hoping that a lot of the hands he'd be calling with would have a jack in them. But honestly, how many hands is he cold calling 80 before the flop that contain a jack? I still figured a lower pocket pair was more likely. So I go for some more thin value here, but he lays the hand down fairly quickly. I then raise ace-jack offsuit and get 3 colors to a 4-4 deuce flop. Figured it was worth a bet as most of them likely missed. and my $65 c-bet takes the pot down. I then see something that I've never seen. A guy racks up mid-massage and moves the masseuse to an empty table. What can I say? I just found that odd. So things were going pretty well. I opened 6-7 of diamonds, but end up losing back 150 after flopping an open-ender but failing to improve against what was pretty clearly an overpair. Then I made a loose call for 15 more in the big blind with queen 7 of hearts and flopped the second nut flush draw. I end up getting unbelievable odds to draw to that hand in what remained a 4-way pot the entire way, but went brick, and ace-king ended up taking the pot down with top pair, top kicker. Game appeared to be getting a little more lively, but I lost back most of my profits, and I couldn't pick up too many hands after that. Until the cutoff raises to 25 over a limp, and I have pocket 7s on the button, and I call. Limper comes in as well with 75 in it. Comes Jack 7-8 rainbow, giving me bottom set. It gets checked to me, and I bet 40. Under the gun 1 calls, and the cutoff, who it seemed to me to be a good player, and it just felt like he sniffed this out immediately, check folds. So with 155 in, the turn is a 9, and +1 checks. I obviously don't like a one-liner being out there, but checking back a set here is just too nitty for my blood. I make it 55, and sure enough, he check raises to 130. The unfortunate part was that he only had 300 behind, so even if he does have a straight and I get the board to pair, I can't exactly maximize here. But as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't always have to have me beat in this spot to make this play. I'm certainly going to be calling that bet. So I do make the call, bringing up the question, can I get the board to pair when I absolutely need it? And with 415 in, the answer is yes, as the river is another 9. He checks here. I still figured that he'd bet if he had a straight, but some guys will opt to check in that spot. I decided to go for a technique that has rarely failed me, though some will criticize it, but I don't care. I like to leave them a little left over in a spot like this. So even though he's got 300 there, I make it 275. This sends him deep into the tank. Deep enough where I think that he could be talking himself into this call with 2 pair. Or he could just be one of these guys who's very nitty and doesn't want to go broke when I could have a full house. But I found that to be somewhat unlikely. He does end up calling, giving us a $965 pot. I show my hand, obviously it's good, and I do not get a look at his hand. After folding every hand for the next half hour, I get dealt ace 10 under the gun and open to 20. I get 3-bet to 75 by under the gun 2, and fold the hand, reminding myself why I don't play that one in that position. I then raise king-queen after getting 2 calls and flop an open-ender on jack 8-10. But once again, I get an insanely good price to draw to my hand in a spot that I wasn't convinced a semi-bluff would work, but again I go brick. I then open ace-queen and get 3-bet. I opted to call. I was hoping for a king-jack-10 flop. Instead, it came king-jack-9 with no hearts, and I opted to fold to a $70 continuation bet. Then I get dealt king-jack in middle position and decide to open it to 25. The 2 blinds give me action, so with 75 in it comes king, queen, jack, rainbow, giving me top and bottom. Small blind checks and big blind leads out for 35. With my 2 pair, I raise it to 100. The small blind actually considers this for quite some time before folding, and the big blind completes. So with 275 in, the turn is the 4 hearts. He checks, I bet 175, and he doesn't take too long with it, and calls. So with 625 in, the river is the ace of spades, one of the worst cards I could have asked for. Big blind checks. This is a situation where I really wish that I had all the information on my opponent before the hand had gone down. Because out of an abundance of caution, I decided to check back this river. And he turns over king deuce of diamonds. I'm guessing that he would have still considered calling a river bet here if he had called the bet before that, but I'll never know. I missed value in a spot that I hated to miss value in, because this was the guy that I wanted to be playing hands against in this game. So needless to say, I'm looking to involve myself with him whenever possible. I opened Jack 9 of diamonds under the gun, and he's my only caller on the button. With 45 in, we see a flop of Queen 10-4 rainbow. I bet 25, and he min-raises me to 50. Obviously, I'm calling here. So with 145 in, the turn is a jack. I check, and he bets 75. I decide to see this river, though I certainly didn't have to. And with 295 in, it comes a complete brick. I check, and he checks back, which in my mind signaled that I might be good here, but that wasn't the case. And he turns over pocket kings, which he just called with before the flop. Wow. I didn't get it on video, as I was trying to trim the other hands, but 2 minutes after that, I had raised King Jack of Hearts and flopped top pair against him. Unfortunately for me, he flopped a set of nines. I highly doubted that an 80-year-old man like this was intentionally advertising himself with that King Deuce hand, but it sure was paying off against me, because I managed to lose several $100s in that hand that I didn't get on video with the King Jack against his set of nines, and a lot of that was due to that King Deuce hand. So I'd successfully turned a winning day into a losing one at this point. I opened pocket jacks 10 minutes later and got 3-bet in a game that had featured basically no 3-betting all day. I liked the 8-high flop after I called the bet, but hated the king turn and let the hand go when he fired $250. And over the next couple hours, things just did not go my way. It just seems like to me, when you make a bad decision in a poker game, it seems like the poker gods punish you for it by the way you run after that bad decision. And checking back that King Jack was such a bad decision on my part. Though again, I wish I'd known more about the guy beforehand. That after I made that decision, nothing went my way the rest of the day. I continued to miss draws, and I continued to make second place hands. And it was very frustrating that after I had gotten that board to pair on the river and won that big pot, my profits on the day disappeared, and I was forced to rack up and book a loss.
Walking back across the street, staying at Resorts World this trip. By the way, this Encore Beach Club, I'm gonna go way out on a limb and say that they're making money. Holy crap. It is absolutely jam-packed and, well, quite a sight to see in a lot of spots there. Wow. So, a $451 loss here in this game tonight at the Encore, and not a great game. And Marco from Chupoya texted me, he's up in Reno, about the game with the Peppermill. Makes me wish I was in that one instead. But I'm convinced I'm gonna bounce back next week on this vlog for part 2 from Vegas. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. Follow me on Instagram at Ben Deach. We'll see you back here then.